Okay, how are you?
Corey, long time no see. Sent that email yet?
No, we can take it tomorrow.
It's 4:30. Let's call the Tuesday, March 13th, 2018 work session. Call that to order. And I'll entertain an approval of the agenda. So moved. Second. All those in favor? Aye. No public comments, and so now I'll entertain the motion to adjourn from the work session.
Close to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Now we will move into the board meeting. I'll call that to order. Tuesday, March 13th, 2018, Board of Education board meeting. And I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to move to approve the agenda with a change under requiring action, number 2, the employment of administrative staff, and move it to executive session.
I also have a couple changes I'd like to do too. One of them is what Scott said, and I want to move the extra duty assignment report, the acceptance of the employee resignations for all of those that are listed, along with the approval of the non-tenured staff to executive session.
Which ones are you wanting to know?
3, 4 on required action. Employee resignation.
Employee resignation.
Do you accept that amendment?
I do.
Okay. We have a motion. This is hers, a second? Or would that be, do we need a second?
You need a second to that, because she amended this as well.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, first on the list is the recognition, and Ms. Hollifield has several Allstate academic honors that she wants to recognize this afternoon. Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Mr. Tanner?
Yes.
Good afternoon. This afternoon, we're going to be recognizing several student athletes for their academic achievements. Allstate academic recognition. Sikeston High School is proud to recognize many of our student athletes for their academic success during the 2017 fall sports season. We actually had 24 students that earned academic Allstate honors for their accomplishments earlier in this school year. The first group that we're going to recognize tonight is Allstate academic recognition for cheerleading. The young women being recognized are Grace Blanton, Kaminsky, Emily Limbaugh, Alyssa Nolan, and Mackenzie Ann. Each one of these recognitions, they have different criteria for that sport. So for the first time, the Sikeston High School cheerleaders were awarded by the Missouri Cheerleading Coaches Association with All-State Academic Cheerleaders Award. The state association has set its standards for recognition. As a student athletes who are in the 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, they have a GPA of a 3.5 or higher and a 24 on their ACT. Congratulations, ladies. Also, I'd like to recognize their head coaches here, Ms. Bivens, tonight as well. I just want to say thank you to you all and for your hard work and your dedication. And if you all will just kind of scoot down, we're going to keep bringing people in, okay? The second group tonight will be All-State Academic Recognition for football. The varsity football players achieving this honor are Bryce Bays. He's in baseball. Seth Copeland. Will Leonard. Just real quick, there's going to be several that aren't here. We have a lot going on today. We have spring sports practices, we have DECA, we have baseball doing burgers and beans. Is that right tonight? So there may be a few that aren't here. These three athletes that I just stated started offense, defense, special teams in 70% of their games. They scored a 25 or higher on the ACT. They earned a 3.5 GPA or higher. Congratulations on your accomplishments. The next group are Allstate academic for soccer. Brett Johnson, I believe he is in soccer, or no, baseball.
Tennis.
Tennis. He's a player. Let me tell you a little bit about Brett. Brett is one of 40 soccer players within the MSHSAA classifications combined in the state to receive this honor. A committee of soccer coaches across the state actually vote and make this selection. The requirements for the Allstate academic soccer team are to be a senior soccer player. You have to have at least a 3.0 GPA, be involved in at least 2 other school or community activities. Brett is the 4th straight SHS soccer student to receive this recognition. Congratulations, Brett. Okay, our next group, Allstate recognition for softball. Those being honored this evening are Emma Drury, Katie Hampton, Dario Lescano, Kylie No, and Megan Witt. These young women have earned an unweighted GPA of at least a 3.5, started 70% of their games, and earned a 24 on their ACT. Congratulations on their accomplishments as well. We have one last group, Allstate academic recognition for volleyball. The young women being honored tonight are Zari Blissett, Deanna Clemens, Amy Enzer, Grace Faust, Adriana Jackson, Emily McAfee, Morgan Merrill, Olivia Nash, Christiana Swan, all of these young women played in 75% of the varsity matches and maintained at least a 3.6 GPA. Congratulations to you on your accomplishments as well. Sikeston High School is extremely proud of these individuals here. Not only are they representing us on the fields and on the courts, but also in the classroom. And that is an accomplishment. I know you spend a lot of time on buses and working late at night trying to get your homework done when you had a meet or an event. And we'd just like to say thank you for your hard work and your discipline and tell you congratulations. You're true role models for the future student athletes of Bulldog sports. Thank you.
Thank you all. Great job.
That's my fault. I turned it over. I just made it one.
You have to stay.
How are you?
Dan was cold, so we had to turn it
So
off.
we all
I actually did it 1 degree.
turned it to
Yeah,
80.
that's what it did.
It was 60
Okay, the first part, under informational, Mr. Sheeter's not here, so we're going to move through graduate fall, but when he does arrive, we'll go ahead and come back to that. Second item is that of the junior high achievement update. I have Mr. Staple, Ms. Glidewell will be presenting that information.
Good afternoon, everybody. Like I said, I'm Mr. Staple, principal of the junior high. It's great to see everybody. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Glidewell, academic principal, and she is going to introduce some of our teachers, and we're going to go ahead with our presentation.
Good afternoon. What we're going to be talking about today is a new teaching strategy that we have been implementing this year. We have with us part of our iLearn team, which of course is associated with the iPads, but as you're all aware, Project iLearn is not just about the iPads, it's about innovative teaching, problem solving, and critical thinking. With us today, we have Ms. Henson. She is our instructional technology coach. Ms. Asher, our family and consumer science teacher, and Ms. Herron, one of our 8th grade American history teachers. And they're going to talk to you a little bit about some of the really neat things they've been doing this year with project-based learning.
All right, this last summer, there was a group of us that went and did a 4-day in-service at Cape on project-based learning. And you can also kind of interchange that with problem-based learning. And basically, it's a student-centered concept where the kids do the initiative. They are doing the investigating and the problem-solving, and they are working towards a goal. And it incorporates those 4 C's of teaching, which is your collaboration, your communication, your critical thinking skills, and your creativity, and brings in technology also. Abby actually kind of got us started with this, and then she went to the elementary, and then I suddenly became the leader. And but it has been a very intriguing process for us. We've had teachers that have been in tears, that have just, I don't understand, I do understand, I don't understand. But I think in the long run, it will actually improve the DOK levels that our students are initiating in the classroom. And just to give you some examples of what some of those projects are, we have had 2 teachers that have already done projects in the classroom. The first one I'm going to start with is with Ms. Herron. She was our first to go, so she was our first to actually have a little breakdown in her process, but has learned a lot. So if you'd like to kind of come up and tell about your project.
Sure. Actually, yes, I had a breakdown, but I knew it was part of the process. I said, just work with me. I know it's part of the process. Lots of times when you're doing something brand new, there's lots of unknowns. So unknown chartered territory, and we're not always comfortable with that. So that's one of the things that in the project, what I had the kids do was over the American Revolution, and we have our standards. It always goes back to our standards. And so what I had the kiddos do was create class websites. So we had our standards, what we need to address, and just a different kind of way. Typically what happens is we will do a lesson, maybe do a quiz, and kind of in that process, and at the very end, we'll do a culminating project. That's usually what it sounds familiar, where with this, it kind of flips it in topsy-turvy. At the very beginning, the kiddos have an idea of their end destination. So we're still everything rooted in standards. You'll do some lessons and what you would typically do. So I would do that, break down some lessons on whatever important battles, some people, and it was just woven in differently, knowing with the project at the beginning, you would have your lessons, and then at the end, your culmination, which you knew about ahead of time. So the kiddos, what they did is we started off, what do you know already? If I said American Revolution, oh, you're going to learn about this, you're like, well, and everywhere somebody knows something. So we brainstormed, what do we know already? And then, oh gosh, Miss, you just said we need to do something. We're going to be creating a website about the American Revolution. So I think I might need to know about A, B, C, D. So the kiddos told me, they're like, I think I might need to know about this. Instead of the teacher standing up in the front and saying, American Revolution, you need to know about this, you need to know about this. It reversed it. But always, always coming back to our standards. So in that with the very first time, kind of the blind leading the blind, and I had no experience whatsoever with Google sites. I'm like, what's it even called? And I'm like, so in there, so we're all leading. Anybody ever created a website? Nobody. It was crickets right across the board. So that's part of the fun, part of the adventure. And so with my kids, that's what we did over the span of time that typically we would have covered for the American Revolution, but just did it a different kind of way. Something for me that was a really big takeaway as a teacher was the retention. And so lots of times you would do a reading and then do a quiz or an activity, a worksheet, and then 2 weeks later after the test, they don't know, they have forgotten. You know, not everybody, but it's a common phenomenon. With this, there was one kiddo in particular that always stands out when I think about this. In a typical classroom or typical presentation or structure or sequence, he would struggle. But with this, he was able to really retain. We came back and did a review activity for something, for our benchmark or something end of semester, and revisiting. And the kids, they were able to identify and truly retain and contribute to this review activity without much prompting. So for me, that tells me my layers and the synapses were firing and the retention was truly there, and they could talk about it. So it's one thing to answer a worksheet and fill it in, but as soon as they're able to talk about it, for me that was really powerful. So.
Yeah, and each one of these projects starts with a driving question to get the kids interested. For example, hers was, when is it okay to revolt against your government? And that brings some eyes open and gets the kids thinking, and they start asking, well, when is it okay? And what were some of the reasons they revolted against the government? And then they can investigate and do a lot of the problem solving themselves, and in that process, they are retaining a lot more of that information. It becomes theirs. It becomes a lot of student voice and choice rather than teacher-driven. Another one that led a project this semester was Ms. Asher.
Since I'm elected and failing sewer science leads its hand to on-hand performance events anyways, I struggled a little bit understanding this process. I had an idea, and then I'm like, no, that doesn't work. And then I had another idea, I'm like, no, I can't get that off the ground. And then finally, we were at a meeting, and it kind of came to me. And that was actually after just talking with the kids one day in class. We're like, right before Thanksgiving break, of course, we should fix the Thanksgiving meal. That would be great. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving break. We should have done it a little bit sooner. So I said, why don't we try a Christmas meal? And they're like, yeah. So everybody, we just started brainstorming. A couple of different groups had pieces of paper going on. And one kid said something about a cook-off. And I'm like, So I ended up doing a ramen noodle cook-off. The first day I rolled it out, we watched Chop Jr., little sections of Chop Jr. And like Miss Heron, we did the needs and need-to-knows. So what are you getting from these little snippets that we're watching here? Oh, they're timed. Okay. They've got certain ingredients that they have to work with. Yes. And then I think I started that on a Friday. So the next day, Monday when we came in, I gave them more information. We talked about, what do you want to know? Girl, are we going to have to present this? I'm like, yes, you're going to have to present this. We're going to have judges. We're like, what? Judges? I'm like, yes. Like, who? They're like, the superintendent. I'm like, well, that's a possibility. I'm like, Mr. Mays, of course, is over curriculum, so we're going to try to get him in here. I did have 3 judges of various teachers. Ms. Henson was one. I also had 3 student judges because I had them in 6 groups, so 3 groups would cook and 3 groups would be judging. It was trial and error. I kind of knew where I wanted to take it. Every night I went home and revamped something. I typed out revamping. I don't know who made in Post-it notes, but I sure am glad they did, because Post-its everywhere of ideas and things that need to be tweaked if I do it again. So we rolled it out. They had to create their own recipe. They didn't know they were going to have to create their own recipe. They didn't know the ingredient. I gave them a scenario. They had to it's their turn to fix the meal for their family. It's a real life situation. Their dad has high blood pressure. Well, if you've ever had ramen noodles, they come with
a packet of seasoning, and that stuff only will kill you over with high blood pressure with the sodium. So I took that and said, you can't use those because of the high blood pressure. They're like, what? We can't season them? I'm like, nope. So I got all the spices I had out in my cabinet, and I said, here you go. You've got to choose from these if you want to season it up. So it was pretty interesting because I wouldn't let them go on the internet to look up a recipe because that's the first thing. Oh, we can just go find one. I'm like, nope, you got to come up with your own. So they took what they knew about ramen noodles because many of them had them because a lot of our students, that's what they have available at home. And it was very interesting to see how they came up with things. We've got made up names and ramen noodle and spaghetti put together, and it's just very interesting. We had tacos made. We had stir fry. Interesting. Of course, we had spaghetti and meatballs and things like that. It was pretty interesting to just watch them come up with and create it. Then I took it a step further. They had to make a grocery list. I had grocery flyers there, and I said, okay, now you can go on to Walmart because I'm going to be shopping at Walmart. Make sure you make it your own store, Sikeston, because that's where I'm going. So they had to research, and I also had a price list that they could kind of look off of if they couldn't find something. So they made their price list, and they had to stay within a budget. And then after I bought all the groceries and we had got done with the project, we actually went back and evaluated how close were you to stay in to your budgeted amount. And some of them came under very little, and then some of them were, shoo, there we went. I think one group went $7 over. They're like, oh, that's hard. I'm like, well, that's what you may have to deal with, one day. Your families, that's what they deal with. That's what you may have to deal with when you go to college or you live on your own. So it applied to their life. They were stressed. There were some of them that I think, because I started on Friday, they were worried all weekend. Because they came back the next day or on Monday, and they're like, are we sure we're going to have to, yeah? I'm like, yes, you are. Like Ms. Heron said, the standards, there are 16 areas of study on the national standards for family consumer sciences. We were able to touch on 7 of them, and there's a variety of competencies within those that we touched on, along with communication skills, teamwork, time management, organization, jobs and careers, because it was one group of kids were cooking, the others, they had jobs. Food critics, we had health inspectors, they had to watch for safety and sanitation procedures. We had a film crew to film it, just like Chop Jr. And then at that time, our water heater was broke, or the boiler was broke, so we had warm water to do dishes, so we had water patrol. So we have that fixed now, thank goodness. But it was very rewarding to see some of these kids that you probably hear from, or that kind of step back in labs, they were involved. And I think that was the most impressive thing, is that they got really involved. One of our IEP students, I was very amazed and shocked by her critique. She was a judge, and it was wonderful to hear what she had to say, because she did it we had a little food critique paper. She went down that list and just told them what she thought and what they could improve upon, and I was just pretty impressed, because usually when you hear her in the hallways or talking to her friends, it's a little rough. But it was pretty impressive just how the kids work together, and it was probably one of our best labs and cooking experiences ever. And I'm like, you had less time really to prepare for this and know what you were doing, but they pulled it off. I was very impressed by their work.
Yeah, the one little girl she was talking about, was very professional when she sat down to critique them. Was never mean about it, but was just very professional and let them know. But I will tell you, afterwards, she's like, I shouldn't have been so hard. They have to grade me tomorrow. There's a little worry there. But these type of presentations, they're just an authentic demonstration of deeper learning, and it allows the kids to delve in and own it. Here's another little handout on the differences between doing projects versus project-based learning, because when you were in school, it was always learn, and then do a project. Learn, do a project. And this is a different way of looking at it. And, one last thing, it also works on the soft skills that we're trying to instill in our kids, of being able to work with others, collaborating, communicating, thinking outside the box. And that's what we're doing.
Questions?
Any questions for us? So, yes, I do. So this is this a across the board, like for all of the junior high classes that you're gonna
We have
implement this?
4 people on the team
We
right
have
now.
4 on the team right now, and I forgot to mention, we have another teacher who's coaching tonight, and couldn't be here, and is getting ready to do a robotics session with some Spiros and some coding and different things like that, and we'll have more information after he finishes his project this next month. But we have 4 on the team right now. We're getting ready to add a 5th one this next year. Our goal is to at least get 1 a semester from each teacher, but it's gonna take a long time to process this and get it throughout the entire building.
So like math, for instance, would this be able to be applicable to
Yes.
the math class?
You can apply it to any subject area.
Okay. Okay, so I read, kids are working in groups, small groups. So have you found that there are certain leaders within groups that are doing most of the work when they're trying to?
The way it's set up is they have actual jobs. Each one has a job, and you can actually fire one of your members from your group if they are not doing. And there's a process of they have to go through to fire their group member. And then the teacher would have an alternate type of plan for that particular child. But I mean, it's real, real life.
And it's driven then, in terms of being assessed a grade, for instance. Are you graded as a group or an individual?
It's both, because there are many lessons throughout the time in which you are going through the project. There will be small little snippets where you may have to take a group and teach them how to do something and take a quiz over it, or different worksheets that everybody has to do, because that's something that goes along with the unit itself. The individual grades come from, but the project itself would be a group grade. Plus, there are ways of assessing each other and getting grades that way also.
And I understand, I've spoken to Ms. Herron about this too, that if you as a kid if you're not understanding something or you're not getting some of the concepts that you need to, the teacher is there to help
Yes.
guide and direct and say, okay, go, here's a resource for you,
Yes.
or here's something you can practice on. So it really gets down to every individual child is being taken care of as an individual as
There's a
well.
lot of mini conferencing that goes on.
If I might interject, we call it, sometimes they're the little
Workshops.
lessons or the little workshops. So as these, as the kiddos identify, I think we need to know about this. We have in our minds already what we think, what we're pretty sure what they need to know. But then there'll also be something very much that's customizable. So if there's a small group in class, for instance, like here, nobody knew about the website, so I just did it for everybody. But I've got something coming up where they're going to use stop motion along with iMovie. So if a kiddo is uncomfortable with stop motion, there's 3 or 4 of them, we can do a small little workshop while the others are working on something else. So to really get in with each child to be able to reach them in different levels with their needs.
Any other questions? Very good. Very good. Thank you. And Mr. Sheeter is here, so we're going to go into the graduation follow-up survey. Alan?
First of all, I apologize for my punctuality, or I guess lack thereof, would be a better way to describe it. I've got a handout here, it's got a graph and some numbers and some stuff about all of our 2017 graduates. As you can see here, there were 243 that popped up on my list that I needed to find. And through a couple months worth of Facebook stalking, phone calling, talking to grandmas and aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters and all sorts of other family members, I was able to locate all 243. And it got easier this year than it was the past 2 years. I don't know if my skills evolved or what, but all of the numbers that you can see here are within a couple of percent, whether up or down. What we try to do is identify those students who graduated that are going to a 4-year school, a 2-year school, some sort of trade school, in the military, gainfully employed, or are unemployed, unfortunately. And all of those numbers, like I said, are very comparable. Unfortunately, the number of students that we have that are enrolled in some sort of school
It went down 1%, which that's fairly negligible. It's still pretty good. It went from 51 to 50%. So half of our students are going out and getting further education, whether it be at a welding school or a fellowship for Three Rivers, or going to, we had kids, we had one go to Yale, I believe. We tracked down, had another one at MIT. That's pretty impressive, someone coming from a small town southeast Missouri. Overall, we had 91% positive placement, which means they either had a job or going to school. And that was down just a little bit from the previous year. As you can see, this year was 9.1% unemployed, whereas last year's it was 5.9, so right at 3%. Bottom line is, our kids are learning and they are becoming motivated, and they're going out and they're doing something with what they gained from Sikeston Public Schools. They're getting the want, I guess, to further education or to go out and jump right into the job world. Our SCTC does a great job preparing kids that aren't quite suited for a 2 or 4 year university. They get them in trade schools, they get them directly working in places that are close by, and they're able to do something positive rather than sit at home and on mom's couch in the basement and play video games. So we're doing a pretty good job with them.
Any questions on the graduation follow-up?
The 243, does that include New Horizons?
Yes.
And so do you ask any other questions of the ones that are unemployed? Like, what are the circumstances leading to their unemployment? Is it sickness, or are there factors involved that could contribute to their unemployment?
There were a few that we had that graduated last year that had some sort of incapacity that prevents them from, like we had some that are in assisted living, and they're just not able to hold a job. But within that particular facility, I believe they're doing something within that facility to try to help them out. I think like maybe sweeping floors or something like that. Excuse me. But we had about 4 or 5 that were in that particular situation. And then most of them that you find, they were working right out of school, but now they don't have a job. A lot of them say, they're looking, and those who are looking, we tell them, hey, call us back. We have contacts with places here in town. We can find some sort of employment if you're looking for it, and a lot of them just don't call back.
Any other questions? Thank you, Alan. Okay, 2 months ago in January, we had Ms. Lombro and Ms. Schott come and present the WAD system at that time. And they went back, did a lot of homework, did a lot of research, did a lot of investigating. They had a parent meeting here a week or so ago with several parents and students in attendance. And I had a survey, and they have some questions that they have answered. So I'll let you all have it, the WAD system.
Well, I wanted to start with a quick review of some of the key components to the WAD system. So we'll look at page 3. It says, what will the WAD system look like at Sikeston High School? Those numbers didn't change from our last presentation. So the summa cum laude is still 4.25 and above. Magna cum laude is 4.0 to 4.24. Cum laude is 3.75 to 3.99. And again, that's based upon their cumulative weighted GPA. Also on page 4, there was a change on that one. In our previous presentation, we only had AP and honors. We have now included dual credit. And the way we're going to count those points is we are going to count each semester as a point. So if you had AP first semester and second semester, that would be 2 points. Dual credit, sometimes a student will take college algebra, and that would be 1 point, but they decide not to take that trigonometry. So it just depends upon how they decide to utilize those points.
And so what we figured, we currently have 37 points total that we offer on our campus. 37 points total. 26 are on our campus. So we broke it down because from our parent meeting, we had some suggestions to maybe grandfather in those distinctions. And so we took it to the class of 2019. You can see what highest honor great honor, and honor would be class of 21, a little higher, or 20, 21, and then what would be with our incoming freshmen for next year would be 22 with highest honor, great honor 18 and 16. And we just sat down and we looked at all the transcripts of each class, all the students that fit in the GPA, and we looked at the classes they had taken and counted up and just felt that this was pretty fair recognition for those students and what they can accomplish, like what the juniors can accomplish by next year. And so that's the point, that's what we changed it to on there.
Going on to page 8, and we kind of briefly talked about how would the students be recognized at graduation. We brought an example of a possibility. This is, now this is not the color that we might go with. We haven't made a decision on the color, but there was a stole that we had on hand, so that we could use that for an example.
So what we're looking at, if you look at the next slide, we had, what we're talking to Johnston's about is for the, they would get their, if they had summa cum laude, whatever we color stole, and it would, if they were highest honor, or you'd have that on the stole. Highest honor, great honor, or honor on the stole. And then this could be, these are just some other possibilities. This is, with the service learning cord and what National Honor Society could do, and then this could be
You
like
still have the medal for them.
valedictorian and
Thank you. Just draw a blank there. So this is going to be an example, and again, the color of stoles could be any color that we choose. Just depends upon what we want to do. Also, it's always nice if the coordinates it for that.
Okay, so moving on, some other things that we added to the presentation since meeting with the parents. If we go to the question 19, we've since then learned from Johnson's that there are other current schools in Missouri. We added a few, like Wentzville and West Plains, I think have been added. There may have been a few others on there. Still not the most current list, because that's kind of impossible to find. And then you can see the next slide that we learned recently from Johnson's is that they're working with schools, other schools that are changing to the lot system next year. And that would be Arcadia Valley, North County, Perryville, and in Jefferson R7. So at least 4 that we know. And then you can see our survey results on the next one. We had 61 responses and 86.9 in favor and 13.1 were not in favor. Are there any questions over anything?
Do we have any indication, the 13.1%, any indication as to why they would not favor that?
It's mainly the asking for us to grandfather in distinctions, or to do something different with distinctions.
Or to count dual credit.
Yes, to count dual
Or
credit.
the way because at first we counted the points as 1 point, like if they took a year-long class, it was 1 point. And so then that's when we went back and changed it to semester pointing, and that's just some of the.
So you think based on that you would, any of those 13.5% would maybe then come
I
around?
think so.
Is it taken before?
Yes,
You had
before
the-
we made the changes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And the other thing, on some of those responses we had, you just didn't understand it. They didn't understand the concept. So I think the biggest one was the whole grandfathering in of the distinctions.
When you,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, one of the questions I had is, where'd you come up with the grade point average ranking? Because I looked at some of the other schools, and Rockwood Summit, Notre Dame, and Saxony, they don't set the bar quite as high.
Notre
as
Dame
we
doesn't
do.
go up as high as we do.
None of them do.
Well, I'm talking, our highest GPA is
Oh.
4.44.
Okay, so they're not weighted.
Yeah, when I talk to Notre Dame administrators, they're weighted, but their highest GPA cannot go up as high as ours does. They're
They don't have CP classes. They just have regular classes and your honors classes. They don't-
What about
they don't have
Rockwood
the-
Summit or Saxony or any of the others?
I'm not sure what their what they have.
Because they all are well, 4.0 or better. Is Notre Dame's on summa cum laude, and Saxony's 3.75 to 4.0.
See,
I
that's
wonder
not,
what their top
that's
end
a
is on
4.0
the
scale,
GPA.
so.
Yeah.
Kind of
That's
looking
a
at
4.0
that, it
scale.
almost looks like it's like a 4.0.
Yeah, that's
is
what
the
I'm
top
saying.
end.
That's a,
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many students in last year's class, for instance, would have been one of these three, cum laude, magna, or summa? Any ideas?
I had it figured, did we figure it up again?
We had some, you guys, if you guys have those top, we had the rankings. I know that I looked at that sophomore class, and I thought it was around 55 or 60 that would fell into all three of
Are you
those.
talking about distinction, or, I mean, I'm sorry.
I was specifically talking about the cum laude.
Yeah,
It's around 40.
40, that
Every
sophomore class
class.
is a pretty big class, so it was like around 50 or 55 more.
Our example for 2018 was Summa was 11, Magna was 14, and Cum was 19, so a total of 44.
I went back over the last 5 years and kind of looked at the data, and it was around 40 to, which that sophomore class would be.
Yeah, that sophomore class. It's more than the 10%. It would be, the students that would be recognized would be more than the 10% that's being recognized currently.
Which is
In
the goal.
every grade. So right now, 10% of each class is getting recognized. And every class that we looked at, it was more than the 10% that would be, that's currently getting recognized now.
Great.
So it would be more students being recognized.
So is it safe to say it nearly doubles the
Pretty
students being
much.
recognized?
I would say probably about
15.
15 to, I think,
Yeah.
Amy said it was about 15 to 17% was the sophomore class. So it's about a little,
But it doesn't double the distinction sign. The numbers kind of fall into place with the distinction
Yeah.
sign as they would for top 10.
And that's where I'm confused, is the distinction, because the last time you guys were in here, that wasn't a part of this, first of all, at least not that I was aware, and I thought that the purpose of changing our system, one of the main purposes, was so that kids were not making choices to compete with each other just to get these positions in the class.
Yeah.
And to me, if you're throwing in this distinction thing, you're just setting it right back up for that to happen again. And kids are going to be choosing to take certain classes just because they've got so many points that they've got to get that distinction.
No, the majority of them, they're not going to. I mean, they're trying to take more, but they're going to compete with themselves.
Well, regardless of whether you get to be having a distinction, if you're going to compete, it's up to you to compete with yourself.
Yeah.
But I think when you throw that in as something that people start seeing as goals they need to try to attain, that you're mixing, you're not sticking with your reasoning for doing this to begin with.
The main reason is we wanted to recognize, give something for those top students to aim for, to be, I mean.
Then let's have the 10%, top 10. It's
But
doing
then
the
the
same
point,
I
thing.
guess
but the point is, my daughter graduated last year with well over 4.0 and was not for the top 10.
And the whole
That's
point,
what's, yeah.
really the whole point,
That
the
is.
whole point to everything is to open those students up to those college scholarships. When we class rank, it takes them out of the running. That's the whole point to this
You
system.
also talked about having it be something where the kids didn't feel the pressure to have to be competing for those, what I now see as the distinctions. And instead of letting them pick like other accounting classes and things like that. I've had parents coming to me about liking the law system, but not liking the distinctions for the very same reason.
But my concern is if those kiddos that are at a 4.25, if once they get there, are they still going to take those classes that could drive them to be more successful in college, or to have those AP courses? That kind of gives them a spot to take those classes and increase their knowledge, whereas if they get a 4.25, they might be, well, I have my 4.25.
Well, it's doing the same thing when you take out your class rank. You know, I might be striving to be number 7 in the class instead of, well, I don't care with this, I could be number 20 and be where I want. I think those kids are self-motivated and driven to get what they want. If they want to have...
If you don't mind, if I can say one thing. I think one of the major differences in the LAUD system and the way we do it now with the rankings is the LAUD system, the kids are trying to reach a benchmark that's set, whether it's the LAUD categories where they have a certain GPA they have to hit, or it's a distinction, it's a certain number of points based on their honors, AP, and dual credit classes. where the top 10%, they're competing against each other. So like Chad said, you may have a student that has a really good GPA, but because they're in the top 11%, then they're not recognized. So I think that's one distinction to make, is that the major, I know you're talking about getting more kids recognized, but one of the major things, that's what Mr. Balsman spoke about at the meeting, was that kids are competing not against each other, but trying to get to that level. And they see that level, and they know if they get there, no matter what happens with the other students, they can still achieve that. It doesn't matter if, if students withdraw and changes the number of kids that are in that percentage.
I think you're going to have the same kids, though, who are competing for those grades, then just focusing on how they can get a distinction.
I know
Because against themselves. They're not competing with another student, they're competing with themselves to get that.
And Mr. Baldwin,
Because we don't say there's only 10 spots.
Right. I get the whole, I get the 10% thing, but I think you're putting the competition back in for kids to say, well, so-and-so is gonna.
Well, because, for instance, take last year's class, and I'm speaking for my daughter, like, where she landed is based on what's Malik Barnett doing, what's Luke Blanton doing, and all them. So she goes, I can't, like, they're, he's going to yell, and I can't. And so it is against her house, where this isolates her, and it doesn't matter. They can achieve whatever they want, but I too can achieve and be right there with them. They still will beat me out for salutatorian or valedictorian or whatever, but I'm not, like, my race isn't based on where they land.
If I may, my son's got 4.2 something, he's not in the top 10, and simply because the class number has gone down, the class per number of people in class. He's come home and jokingly said, stop kicking kids out of school because I'm not going to be in the top 10 anymore.
I'm with you on the page with the top 10 where you've got this line, but I think you're throwing the competition back in there because if Luke Tanner or somebody is
Mr. Baldwin is our AP Go teacher, and he talked that night. Did you guys hear? He said he talked to all the juniors all that whole day about this, and they all felt relieved because they were tired of the competition. They didn't take it that way. That was his point that night at the meeting.
Well, do these other schools that do this LOD program, did they have a distinction?
Some do, some don't.
These ones that we looked at did not.
What is the distinction? What is that? How does the distinction, I guess I'm confused from yours. How does that distinction make them compete against one another? That's still their personal distinction.
No, they're not competing with each other. They feel like, they're going to feel like they have to do that to get a distinction. So they're going to.
But it's for their resume, I mean, it's just for their personal resume.
So is the top 2% too.
Yeah, but
5 highest honors, and if the first 5 get there, they can't get that. There could be 40 highest
I
honors.
understand that, but it's not going to prevent, it's not going to allow those kids who are high achievers who maybe want to have a break and take an accounting class or not, and they get to the, 4.25 and but then they think, well, I've got to keep taking these classes every semester.
I want to disagree with you on that. Again, just a person, my son, he was one that went to SEMO, or SAHEC, decided he wasn't going to take the trigonometry, came back, took trig at the high school, and unbeknownst to me, him and his mother made some kind of secret pact. He's in library services now, and I really didn't.
It's a great course. I took it as a senior. It's a fantastic course.
He's got what he wants. He knows that he's not going to be number one, but he's in our system right now. He would probably have an honor, magna or summa. He'd be one of those, and with a distinction. Okay, big deal. I mean, once they get it, I think they're going to get it, and those that want to compete against themselves or against somebody else, they're going to do it regardless if they have distinctions or not.
We still have those kiddos that will still say, hey, what did you make on that AP? I mean, you can ask that sophomore class. They will compete on every single test they take, no matter what they take. So that's not going to be out of spectrum. I mean, it's going to be there.
College applications don't care whether you rank number 5 out of 300. They're looking at your GPA.
Correct.
Period.
Right. Yes.
Period.
That's why you take and that's why if you take the rank out of there, then you're thinking, well, they're.
So is that a school board decision that we report class rank?
No.
It's a.
That's what was said at that meeting, that it was school
I
decision.
thought that's what I thought that's what right. I thought
Because
that's
when I brought that up, that I was told that was a school board decision and that it had to be done.
I think it would be a decision of the board to adopt a lottery program, but
I guess
as
that's
far
what
as
I thought,
reporting
yeah, we were
classroom.
presenting this to the board and it needed to be a board decision, so that's why I thought that class
But
rank
if we
was-
report class rank and they ask you on a scholarship, do you report class rank? We're gonna say, yes, we report class rank, because we are giving students their class rank. We're not gonna say no, just because we're
But
not,
what I was saying was it was not a requirement.
right, okay.
But you all were saying that it was, and you were talking about being unethical, and that's not.
Well, it is, I mean, it is. I mean, if they
No.
ask you a question, do you report class rank, and you say no, then it is.
But if
I'm
it's
not gonna
going,
lie.
if it's going to hurt someone, then you leave it off, because it's not a requirement to do so. That's all I was trying to say at that meeting. But my point is this, when you presented this to us, I think the laud system's a great thing. I can't see a disadvantage to having summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and cum laude. Because you're going to, like you said, you're gonna be able to recognize more kids. And I think that's what we're here for, is these kids that have worked to get this kind of grade point average, they need to be recognized. But you also said that the reason why you wanted to do this was to encourage kids to explore academic interests in high school rather than waiting for college, which is a great thing. Because I may think I want to be an accountant, or I may want to go into business or whatever, and I'm going to have the freedom to do this because I know that my grade point average is going to fall somewhere in here, and I'm good with that, and I can go want to do that, or if I like music or whatever. But when you throw those distinctions in, and you can sit here and say, oh, kids aren't going to, yes, they are. They're going to want to compete against. I'm going to want to compete against Aaron because I know what he's got, so I'm going to want to make sure that I have this grade point average to make sure I have the highest distinction just like Aaron or so-and-so or whatever if I'm that kind of kid. But what you do is when you throw those distinctions in is you're taking the ability for those kids to be able to explore those other interests and continue to have a high grade point average and excel and be good with this new system where more kids are going to be honored, which is what we're about.
Right.
I've talked to several of the parents that were at the meeting, after the meeting, and I've had at least 15 parents call me about this. And they were very confused about the distinctions. They kind of got they liked the laud system and they kind of understood that. But when they talked about the distinctions, that's where every person that I talked to is against it. Where they're like, yeah, we were so excited about the laud system. Because just like Chad's saying, like with his kid and Steve's saying with his kid, they missed it by, because how the class size and all that. So they're very excited. But the distinction, you throw in that component where now you've got the competition back, which is what you all said you wanted to kind of do away with. You talked about Heather Self was talking about the friends that aren't friends anymore because of valedictorian. You got the competition, right? And so when you throw those in, then all those components that we're saying we want to do away with, we're bringing back into this system with the distinctions. And you're taking a really good system that could benefit a lot of kids, and you're kind of taking that away because it's kind of basically what we've got now. So I think that parents are going to be behind this law system, and I think you'll get support for that. But when you throw those distinctions in, I think that you're going to have a lot of complaints because people don't like it. Parents do not like that. And I think what you've presented as being your reasoning for this is very good. I love the fact that kids can take accounting or they can take music or art or whatever and explore kind of what their interests are before you go to college and you pay all this money to get there and explore these things and you take it, no, that's not what I want, so you've thrown this money away. They can kind of get their feet wet in high school and say, yeah, I think I kind of learned and I don't like that at all. So, like I said at the meeting, I support the laud system, but I don't support the distinctions, and I think that the whole concept of it is you're doing away with it, and of what you're saying is the driving force to changing this when you add those distinctions in. So I would say no on the distinctions, and
I think,
Because when you do the distinction, something else, you're catering to a small group of kids. And those kids are going to be your ones that, it doesn't matter if they have a 4.25, they're not going to be okay with that. When you're talking about that, they want to get the top. Even if it's not going to be honored somehow, it's something inside of them or with another person. And,
They're gonna compete with.
but what's wrong? But what's wrong
themselves,
with that?
They're in that.
well, but we're saying there's something wrong with that because we want to change the system. We're saying there's something wrong,
So they
because we
can
want to
take
take,
scholarships.
we want to
So they
take
can
the
get more
competition out,
scholarships.
and we want kids to be able to explore other interests, and we want to take the competition element out and just let it be something inside of them. Those kids that are going to be with those distinctions are going to, they're going to achieve that no matter what, because that's what kind of kid they are. But
That's a personal choice then. I mean, they want distinctions. That's And at the end of the day, though, that's, I was gonna say, if it's a
Well,
kid
that's just
taking
basically
the
saying
honors
that
course,
an AP class,
why would you not?
why would you, I mean, if I was a student, why would I take an AP class over a CP class? Because I'm not gonna get any more you know? It's making them,
But why do that
Want to take
now?
that.
Because you're talking about a very small percentage of kids, 10% of kids in a class that are going to get recognized now, and you still have kids that are enrolling in your AP classes and your dual credit, or you wouldn't have those classes to begin with because you wouldn't have anybody enrolled in them. So you're going to have those kids that are going to enroll in that no matter what, because they do now, and they're not getting anything. At least with this system, they're going to be recognized.
Right,
So-
Davis, Suma, and law.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's a great thing.
Ms. Shaw, you had a comment, I'm sorry.
I know you heard from a lot of concerned parents, and, you know, we've heard from parents too, both sides of the house. And some of the parents that we've heard from that were in favor of it, it gives their children, the ones who have chosen to take that more strenuous path, recognition for choosing that path.
And-
So that's the
And
other side of
and you
that.
know what, and I agree with that, but again, that right there is a very, very small percentage of kids, and you're gonna take some of those kids, along with a lot more, who are going to try to do that, and you're losing what you're saying is your reasoning for doing this, which is allowing kids to explore other interests and take those classes that they really want to explore and do in high school that they don't have the ability to do when they're under the pressure of trying to get that distinction.
But really,
That's
those
all, that's what I'm
distinctions-
trying to say.
Those distinctions are secondary. So, I mean, if a kid, I mean, it's possible to be summa cum laude with honors. Like, if I want to take, you know, underwater basket weaving and take an easy course, then great. I'm still going to graduate summa cum laude, but just with honors. I'm okay with that. Like, but for those that go, hey, I want to be top, but I also want to be recognized for taking AP or CP or doing a more rigorous, why would we not applaud that?
This is all a personal choice.
and we had some, when we looked through numbers and looking, we had some in the or in summa cum laude that weren't gonna receive any honors. I mean, but that was their personal, I mean, that's their personal choice. They're still gonna get recognized where they might not get any, I mean.
We're going to have some kids that are just going to graduate, thank you, Lottie, you know, that they graduated.
I want to tell you, I support the lottery system, and I support the distinctions, but I have a concern that I don't want to see economics become a barrier to a child receiving distinctions. They can't take a dual credit course.
It's not. That's why we looked at how many was offered on, everything offered on campus, they do not have to pay for.
Yeah.
So that's why we made it in that reasonable 26.
Yeah.
That's why
How
we
many
made it.
are
We did not
So
make it.
they can
Yes.
achieve that.
How many are offered that you don't have to pay
Yes.
for?
And we looked at it, like if a class would drop or a class would add, I mean, we can always, that's subject to change, you know, if a dual credit course wasn't being offered anymore, or if a class wasn't being offered at the high school, I mean, we've looked at where we've said that that's subject to change on our numbers. We're not going to make it where a student cannot get it based on their economics or based on the availability of a class.
So they're gonna have to take, there's 26 offered, right, that you don't have to pay for?
26 you don't have to pay for.
So your requirement is
26 points.
22.
Right.
That's 26 points, so that's like a year
They get 2 points for one class. If it's like an honors English, that would be 2 points
Each semester you get a point.
each semester.
Right.
Because
So
we'll have
there's
kids that'll take
26
honors
available,
English.
and you have to have 22 points out of
We kind of looked at
26.
what students normally take, honors English 1, honors English 2, AP English dual credit. That's what they're gonna, a lot of them take. We looked at math, what a lot of them are gonna take. So, and that's how we came up with that. Kind of what their normal path, looking at transcripts and things like that.
And we looked at some kiddos that have kind of the economic part of it, that they, like this year, we had a student that wasn't able to take a dual credit course, and so forth. And we looked at some of those, and they were able to get those
Yeah.
points.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we came up with, that was what, looking at transcripts, we felt that was very doable for our students.
Yeah, we didn't want to make it where they had to pay for courses if they couldn't.
That's good. That way,
Yeah.
I'm
If you
glad
don't
to
have to
hear
take dual
that.
credit, you can take AP 4. There's still, we looked at all those options like that.
Good.
Any other comments or questions?
I just wonder if we shouldn't go back and vet it out a little bit better with the parents. Because, I mean, there was one meeting, I didn't even know about the meeting, so I couldn't be there to inquire
A phone
anything.
call was sent out grade 7 through 12.
There was,
Right? Yeah.
Well, as a board member, I mean,
She didn't get it because her daughter's
Oh,
at the 6th.
yeah. And I mean, I've heard enough from parents who don't, that I'm just wondering if we're,
Well, I
leaving it
expected
as
a
to-
bigger turnout at our parent meeting.
yeah.
We had 20. There were,
Well, I mean,
that's teachers, parents, and students.
And we sent it out, we did send
Yeah.
it,
We
we
sent
sent
an
out
email
the
out.
information out, all like this, kind of like this
It was
handout to
Email, a
parents.
syscall.
We did an email, Cisco, and we sent out this information, and we had,
Let me
No
ask you a
parents
question,
involved.
let's step in just a
That's
minute. How, to kind of answer Rebecca's question, to kind of piggyback off that, how tough would it be to go ahead to send out a survey monkey to our parents to just get their feedback?
well, we were afraid that if they didn't understand it, we would get some of those.
Could you, but
Questions.
could you maybe have like some type of tutorial or some type of, kind of like what you have here associated with that? Send that out with them? I'm asking.
I mean, we could, we just didn't want them to fill it out and not be informed on
Sure.
what the lotting
You're not-
system
right.
was.
get some misinformation.
Yeah,
Right.
on the
I do
misinformation,
understand
because
that.
when we first sent it out, before we even had our meeting, we did have some concerns, and then people that came to the meeting were like, I get it now,
So
I
you had
understand now.
So you had 20 attend the meeting, but on this survey you got 61
And
results.
then
There
after
was
the
more than
meeting,
20.
there was around.
There were 45
Well,
at
the
the
number
meeting.
of people that filled out the survey that night was like 19 or 20.
We had some
Okay.
before it was over.
Okay.
And then the next day we took it and had our teachers fill out the survey too. And the percentages didn't really change much. For the 9 of us that after the survey that night, and then when we had the teachers, we gave them an opportunity to fill out the survey.
So why didn't we open this up, district-wide? Because this affects everyone's child.
Well,
It's not
because
just
again, I
7
think
through 12.
Tiffany answered that question, is that it's gonna be kind of difficult for them to really understand the concept, because they haven't been involved with it, whereas the 9 through 12 parents have been more, and the kids have been more involved with it. So I think you're gonna have more confusion if you do it K through 12. I think the elementary folks
If
are
you
really
don't
gonna see the
understand
role.
Because
AP
one-
honors and dual credit,
One parent that was there that night said, I didn't even realize until first semester after my child was a freshman, really what the ranking, and so that's,
Yeah.
a lot of parents don't even realize that unless they have somebody going through it or informed, some of them don't even realize that there's such a competition between the things.
did you talk to schools who just have the lottie system, and the ones that you say there were a few that did the distinctions? Did you have conversations with them to ask them how those programs were going, or whether they regretted
the
anything?
people that have had both, they were at the ones that presented this to us at the conference, there was nothing, I haven't heard any negative or disadvantage to it.
Do you have a contact number for the people who presented? I have that.
The people that I talked to that were with Notre Dame, they can't understand why we're still doing the class rank.
That's
I mean,
what
they
we
think
do.
it's something that's archaic and,
I don't think the Galati system itself is the issue. I think that's a supporting thing. My concern is the
the
distinction.
distinction.
Yeah, and that's really what I'm trying to dig into a little deeper. Does Notre Dame do distinction?
They don't do distinctions.
Why not?
Because they're not as good as us.
I wanted to do distinctions, I wanted to do distinctions to begin with because I felt like our students who took a lot of AP honors and dual credits needed to be recognized for that. It wasn't anything to cause competition, I just felt like if a student wants to take 8 or 9 AP, that'll make 8, I don't know, I'm just thinking, whatever they want to take, they can be recognized for that. I didn't want to turn it into competition.
But
between-
then you're saying that that's on that student.
But those students are going to compete no matter what.
Rebecca, you
Yes.
graduated college, I assume, right? Did you sit in the audience when they were doing magna cum laude, summa cum laude with honors and all that stuff, distinctions?
I didn't go to my graduation.
Well, so it really didn't matter then to you. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, those kids are going to graduate and want those honors, they're going to do it regardless.
So let's talk about it in reverse for a second. So what if there's a kid, and this is a good part of the distinctions, I think, what if there's a kid that's got a 3.5? It's a good
They're
student.
not in the law though.
Right, but they can still graduate with honor, can't they? No, you have to
Be
have the
3.75
3.75
or higher.
to qualify for that.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right,
Yeah, I was just taking that little one step further.
okay.
from being
I think
in
this
law.
is very strict right here. I think your law system, I think it's very, very strict. I think a child that graduates high school with a 3.5 is a very good, I mean, I think that should be,
Our highest GPA goes at 4.44, so that's pretty high.
And the ones that are going to get recognized for that are, I mean, they wouldn't have even been recognized in the top 10%.
I understand that, but I'm just saying,
I'm just saying.
your whole purpose is to recognize more children.
Right. And more
That's
will
our
be
whole
rec-
purpose,
And
right?
more will be recognized, yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm just saying, my opinion is that this is it's very strict guidelines if we're wanting to recognize more kids. Because the thing is that you've got kids that work really, really hard that are never going to be able to take AP classes. But they're giving you 100% of what they can do. And, maybe if we had a lower level or something like that, or it would give them more incentive
Be
to,
part of that.
huh?
I think a lot of those people, a lot of those kids you're referring to would be part of that.
They have
somewhere.
something to, I mean, if they have a 3.5 or a 3.6, that 3.75 isn't unreasonable
No.
with a couple semesters. I mean, they would have something to strive for where that top 10%, they are way out of it, and then are they gonna strive any what's further?
In college, on just a straight 4.0 scale, that was a lot, isn't it, 3.5 and up? I mean, I
I don't know, I didn't have to worry about it.
No, I was at like, I know I was at a 3.3 or 3.4, and I wasn't, that's what I'm saying, I think it's 3.5 and up to get any of the law distinctions, and so that is a super sliver there.
Right.
Ours is a lot broader than that.
Exactly.
I
And
mean,
again, we're opening it up, we're adding more kids. So
Yeah.
we are going to allow more kids to be part of that. And I don't see how helping kids is a bad thing.
Well, I think part of our job as all educators is to encourage our students to go further than what they think they can do. So, we're doing enrollment right now. I have kids that are in CP, American History. I encourage those kids to go for that AP class, just to push themselves just a little bit more. So it's helping them realize their abilities, even though they're like, oh, no, I can't do that. Well, we know they can. It's just that little extra push. And I feel like encouraging students to do that helps with that distinction. Because I think it's important that we encourage them to reach a little bit further and a little bit farther than what they think they can do, because we know that most of them can. Some don't want to, but most of them can.
It doesn't hurt to educate those that are affected or going to be affected by this, so I think that we owe it to our constituents to let them know, because this is a big deal. I mean, this is a big change. It is hard to understand, because the first time you explained it, I had some issues. And it takes talking to other people, it takes going to your meeting and getting the information and digesting it and asking the questions. And I think a lot of people are scared of change. And, you know, I looked at Tom the night that you guys presented, and I said, they're not expecting us to pass this tonight, are they? You know?
Speaking to the Notre Dame administrator, he said it's the best thing they've ever done. Their students are getting more scholarships, and they've not looked back since they changed.
I think you're probably right with the lot system, but these distinctions are clouding everything, because what you're doing, I feel like, is you are putting a lot of pressure on kids. They have enough pressure. I mean, what my kids have homework with every night with high school is amazing to me. It is amazing, and just the pressure that they feel just by going to high school and the workload that they have. And a lot of kids, this adds to that when you add those distinctions. I think the lot system's great, but sometimes I just want kids to be well-rounded. I mean, I'd love for my kids to be able to take more art, or I want my kids to be able to take a business class, an accounting class, and all these, like, digital media and all that neat stuff, and find what their interests are. They never figure that out. And then when you get to college and they want to play around, well, mom and dad are like, we're not spending thousands of dollars for you to figure this thing out by taking all, and that was my whole point earlier. We could be allowing them to do that here.
We're allowing them to take it, they just may not graduate with honors. I mean, and if they want to graduate with honors, they'll shift the way they're thinking.
But Steve, they shouldn't have to. They
But
shouldn't have to.
those kids are going to do that, are going to do it anyway. They're going to do it anyway.
Well, you have that very few, you're right. But the other ones that may not feel that pressure to do that and may be happy with just whatever, they're still not going to be able to do that, because they are going to feel pressure to try to get those distinctions when they could in fact be trying to find something that they like. And that was the whole thing that this was presented to us, is that was one of the main things that they wanted to do, was open that up so more kids could explore other things and take these.
It still opens it up. Like I said, you're just going to have those kids that are going to do one track for the other, and then again, that's a personal choice.
I do think that we've got to do a little homework here, though, and like I said, there's no rush on this. I mean, we'd like to get it done here soon, because there's a lot of kids enrolling, but at the same time, I know you guys like to work during the summer and like to come back and reschedule these kids. But I think that, and I still hold true with that, I still think that survey is something that we may need to look at. I really think so. And along with that, I think we need to supply some information you guys presented, which is extremely good. I think it explains a lot. It might be a good thing too, to really kind of look at if we can find some schools that have the distinction type part of it and see how they do that. I think it'd be kind of interesting. And if you guys can have this done by tomorrow, that'd be great.
Come down before we leave.
Do you know if the ones that are considering the lottery system, if they're considering distinctions
I have
also?
not found that out yet, no.
Well, there was Arcadia Valley, Perryville, Jefferson, and North County. I don't know. A simple phone call or email could probably.
Do you know which ones off the top of your head, or have a list of which ones do distinctions versus don't?
There might be some in that presentation we can look at.
Well, yeah, I think it'd be kind of interesting to find out what and how they do it.
Yeah, and how, if it's affected how is it affected, and in what way, their students' choices?
Right. Any other comments, questions?
Any other research needed while we're doing it?
No, but you all are doing a lot of work.
I said, thanks for the work you have done.
Yeah.
A lot of information, a lot of,
It was a great presentation the night that you had the parents over in the cafeteria. I thought you guys did a wonderful job, all of you, and great presentation tonight. I really think you guys did a wonderful job.
And if
You do.
you all have any ideas, we're always welcome for suggestions as far as a way to explain it to parents that breaks it down to black, white, no questions.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe a video we could attach, or Any ideas? Because we need to break it down into real simple terms. Okay. All right.
Thank you all.
ladies. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
I think
Thank
it might be
you.
something that the
Thank you, sir.
project-based learning class could put together something. Come up with the ideas and how to think through that.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is that of student enrollment as of March 1st, 2018. You can see our enrollment was 3,310 students. We're down 7 students in February. K through 6, we're down 1. 7 through 12, we're down 2 students. In alternative school, we're down 4 students. From previous information I've given you about alternative schools, and then those kids leaving there, that's a good thing, because then those kids are graduating. So that's where we are right now. And by looking at, if you can look at last year this time, we're still above.
Right, I just noticed that.
That's good. In addition to that, next item is student discipline data as of February 2018. You can review that information. Next, 6, we have board policy consideration, and we're expecting these policies, and I was very appreciative of MSBA to get that to us in a timely manner. Sometimes we get those in June and they're due July 1. So this gives us adequate time in which to go through these board policies for consideration. First one is IGBD, which is dealing with at-risk students, and this one does need to be approved by July 1st of 2018. This simply identifies those kids, those 9th grade students who are at risk and are not on track of graduating. By looking at that policy, you can see there's certain criteria that can be fit in, plus we can add criteria as well, as far as how to identify those students who may be at risk. Next item, or next board policy is IKF, which is that of graduation requirement. There was a simple addition to this, that is the addition of the civics examination, in that everyone in school, and if you want to graduate, you need to take and pass the civics examination.
That's required by statute, isn't
Yes, it is. Yes, they added that in there. I'm sorry. Yes, they added that in. No, excuse me, they took that out. And I'll tell you why they took it out. That's my fault, thank you. Because they waived it. Because a lot of those things you can waive, like the Constitution test, in Missouri and the U.S. Constitution, you can waive, but there's certain requirements there that you have not fulfilled, and it wouldn't allow you to graduate on time. They could waive those. Okay, for example, I took an American history class in another state. You can go ahead and waive that, but you can't do that with the civics exam. You're required to take it. Next one is student guidance and counseling. This simply puts into play a personal plan of study, which is something that we currently do. We already have a plan of study in place. You can see there are some of the items that could be placed within that plan of study. Requirements for graduation, your post-secondary and career goals, coursework, field experiences or career-related experiences, assessments, and so on and so forth. And then the last one is that of suicide awareness and prevention, which is JHDF. This is a policy that has to be in place by July 1. You can see the strategies that have to go into the policy that we have to cover next year. This has to be presented to the staff prior to the start of next school year. We have to have a 2-hour training with our staff members. And in addition, we have to set up response teams, and there's a lot of work involved with this particular policy.
So this is required?
Yes, it is
Okay.
required.
Well, it says, is it actually that we have to do a policy, or can we put procedures in place?
No, we have to have a policy in place, what I understand. A MSBA and statute requires, the way I understand it, is that you have to have some policy in place about suicide prevention and awareness.
When I read this, I hate to see the school district have to get in the weeds of that stuff and have one more responsibility. I mean, I would wish we could do it at the minimalist in terms of having it in a policy, just the minimalist stuff. That, we're going to be doing that with, if our counselors know that, they know they're going to be doing what they have to do. If we're teaching, our staff what to look for, that's, something that's reasonable. But I mean, this seems very burdensome to me, and I don't like the part that requires us to start teaching fifth graders about suicide. I think that our minds are not ready for that, and even starting, I would fear you're planting the seed of it before they even start thinking of things like that.
That is my concern too. When I read that about fifth grade, I think that's that is not age appropriate for that young kids.
I'm not so sure we have a choice, but I'll check.
I would, yeah.
I'm pretty sure, guys, we don't have a choice.
Well, it says back in the reference copy, it talks about that you just have to have these, a youth suicide awareness and prevention policy that includes strategies that help identify students.
Yes.
It doesn't go into any detail. So do you just have to make up your own strategies, your own protocol, and your own protocol for responding? Is this?
No, we're gonna work in cooperation with someone like Blue Hill Counseling, because obviously we're not the experts in those areas. So we're gonna have to reach out to some other agencies that are gonna offer assistance with that.
But what I'm saying is like, how in depth is the requirement? I mean, does it go into specifics, like it says in fifth grade, you have to?
That I'll have to read the statute on that, Heather, I don't know.
Don't we want to reduce some of the detail? I mean, we could be a lot of liability for something not followed.
Yes, that's what I think.
Like you said, Tom, we can just read
We can, absolutely. I do know that I'm pretty sure we have to have a policy in place by July 1, though.
Yeah, but it looks like you can do 1, 2, and 3 without getting so detailed about it. If it just says these are all what you have to include is the strategies and protocols in 1 through 3 at the top.
May I say something?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I don't know for sure what the law says on the fifth grade, but with the age appropriate there, you could make sure that you move that instruction. You don't have to. I mean, you don't have to go into depth in that. You might not even use the word suicide with that age appropriate. It could just be something about talking about what kids can do if they have issues. I'm not a counselor, but with that age appropriate, I think that would give you some leeway to make sure you weren't getting. I know what you're saying about getting too graphic in the instruction. Something might be handled through that.
I don't want anybody talking mine.
I get you. I'm not. I'm just saying.
Or even just,
I get where you're coming from.
Touchy-feely, are you feeling?
But if Mr. Williams sees that's what the law says, that age appropriate gives you some leeway.
You're right.
Yeah.
It would.
I just didn't want you to worry.
We'll bring it back.
That's fifth grade. Don't worry about it.
Okay, number 7 is the March special work session scheduling. What I'd like to do is if you would get out your calendars and let's plan a date.
That week is a trial that week.
Okay. I'm open. I'm open for anything as long as we can.
I think it's a great idea to do a work
If
session.
we have, I'm looking at the month, we could do the next week, which is the 26th. Now we're,
The week of the 26th or?
I'm just throwing that out.
I'm pretty open that week.
I can do that week. I can't next week.
I'm tied up Monday and Wednesday of that week.
Okay, let's look at Tuesday the 27th.
5 o'clock.
Okay, March 27th at 5. I'll have Carrie send out a calendar invite, and we'll plan on that. All right, great, that was easy. Okay, number 8 is the update on the Sikeston Regional Chamber Annual Banquet. That has been changed. I believe the date originally was in March, and they've changed it to April 5th at 5:30 at the Armory. So if you would like to attend that, if you would contact Carrie, please, and she'll take care of you on that. Number 9 is the MSBA Spring Regional Meeting. I mentioned that last month. That is April 16th. And again, if you wish to attend, please contact Carrie and let her know. Number 10 is the CMO Superintendent's Annual Banquet. That is April 24th and the 6 o'clock in Cape. If you would like to attend, I need to know before March 29th. So if you'd like to attend that, that's a time when they recognize recognize the retiring board members, the administrators. It's just a time to come together and network with other boards. So if you'd like to do that, please let Carrie know prior to that date.
I'd just like to say something too, that MSBA meeting, since we're
Hosting.
it'd be good to have as many board members there as possible. Last time we hosted, I wasn't able to be there. I think I was the only one. So there's seven that
Yes, you
couldn't
were,
be.
Scott, but
I'll just fess up right away. It'd be good if we could do that.
I've got it on my calendar.
okay, very good, very good. Okay, next, going into requiring action, I'd like to request permission to schedule an executive session to discuss personal matters immediately following this meeting.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Cronenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Drury?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, moving down to number 5 on the agenda, appointments to the SPS Foundation Board of Trustees. We have 2 individuals, Bart Grant and Steve Williams, who have been nominated by the Foundation Board of Trustees to serve a term from March 14, 2018 through March 9th of 2021. It's my recommendation to accept those 2 nominees.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Next, we have the appointment of the Board of Education member designated in the trust to the SBS Foundation Board of Trustees. That is from March 14, 2018 through March 9, 2021. I'm asking for nominations.
Scott, did you say you would like to do that again?
I'll continue to do it if the board would choose to.
I nominate Scott.
Second.
We do a roll call or just a?
It's not contested, you can just do an nomination. See if there's any other nominations.
Are there any other nominations?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
Good point.
Okay, number 7 on the agenda is consideration of the assessment plan. I have Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. We're required to annually approve our district assessment plan. I didn't make a lot of changes, just made a few, mostly based on policy IL that you adopted a month or 2 ago. First, I added a section at the beginning of the assessment plan to explain the main district assessments that we have. And then we're getting a focus on the increased use of common formative assessments, or CFAs. You've had several people talk to you about those in different presentations. I also revised the section on state assessments, honestly, to make it easier to understand and to see what state assessments are given. I also added our latest assessment results and added an explanation of the requirements for our high school students to pass the Constitution test and civics test. And of course, Mr. Williams spoke about that a few minutes ago. I will say to the civics test, this year's freshmen are the first ones that have to pass that assessment. The thought is that the beginning part of those changes there will be included in the student handbook to meet the parent notification requirement for assessments. We have that part in the handbook as it is now, and so we'll just revise and put this in there so parents have that information. I also revised ELL assessments, which is our English language learners, and the reading improvement plan part. Basically, I took it out of the middle of all the other assessments listed and listed those separate, so if someone looked at that, they could find that information easily. And other than updating the industry recognized credentials assessments, and if you remember, those are the ones that are given at the SCTC at the completion of the course, so that those students can be recognized, get their accreditation. Other than revising that list, the remainder of the assessment plan is pretty much unchanged from past years. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck.
The administration recommends to approve the assessment plan.
So move.
Second.
Discussion, comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Lastly, under required action is approval of paid bills through February of 2018.
And need to roll call as well.
Yes, you do abstain.
We'll need a
I
motion.
would move that we accept the bills with a roll call vote for 2018, February 2018.
Second.
Mr. Cronenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Drury?
into the consent agenda items, and
Okay.
Mr. Tanner, just have to exclude part E.
Is it, I thought it was
D and
D and E.
D and E.
Oh,
Yeah,
excuse me,
yeah,
yes,
I was gonna
D
say,
and
I
E.
was trying to remember
Yes.
which one we asked to move. Okay. Consent agenda items, approval of the following minutes. Special work session, February 7th, 2018, executive session, February 7th, 2018.
Let me interrupt you just for a minute for clarification's sake. I thought you were referring to under requiring action because it talks about extra duty services on 4 under requiring action. Whereas this under consent agenda items is what we currently are doing. For example, those people that are working concessions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's
I
not-
didn't have that down a while ago when we moved for the agenda. Heather, was that your intent, or
What?
the ratification of the extra duty assignments? When we approved the agenda with the amendment,
the athletic position, extra duty assignment.
Which is under required action,
I think she's
right?
talking
Consent is
about.
what's already.
because we had the
Oh.
ratification.
This is something that we do on a
Oh,
yearly
yeah.
basis.
Yeah.
I think
I think we leave that, she's talking about this one, I think.
She's talking about it.
I think you're right.
Is that what you meant?
No,
Okay.
that's just the report of who's worked it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So I'm just taking D off there, correct?
Just take E.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Work session, February 13th, 2018, regular session, February 13th, 2018, executive session, February 13th, 2018. Ratification of support staff, ratification of substitute teacher report, and ratification of extra duty assignment report. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda items. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Speaking more, did he just get